Hello, welcome to the budgeting session. My name is Nicole Fond with Junior Achievement. I have with me our guest presenter, Julianna Begalla, and I am going to turn the presentation over to her for our lesson on budgeting.
Well, thanks, Nicole. And my name is Julianna. I am here today to talk about budgeting, and we're going to go through a really great kind of exercise. And I am the marketing director at Cortland Bank. And as much as I don't like it, budgeting is a big part of my job, even though I would rather just spend it all. But that's why it's important for us to really be aware of our budget, be aware of our finances, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So we get this. So personal finance, it's really a lot like your personal fitness. So keeping your finances healthy, it requires planning and it requires you to continually kind of work toward goals. And so what we're going to talk about today is how a budget is kind of like a workout plan and how it keeps you on track. And, your personal finances, they really affect your quality of life as a whole. And they're dependent upon things like your earnings and your savings. And it's really how you get what you want and need. So things like buying a house, buying a car, maybe it's going to college or going to school, those are the kind of things that are major expenses in our life that we have to make sure that we're planning for and setting those kind of savings goals and working to achieve them. So it's really something that we have to work on all the time. And, it's things like earning money, budgeting that money, like we said, saving money for your larger purchases and emergencies, managing your credit, managing your debt, and really trying to grow your money. So today we'll talk about planning your spending by making a budget. Okay, so we're going to watch a quick video, and while we're watching the video, I want you to think about two points that you see in this video that you can kind of relate to you and to budgeting and saving.
More items on your to-do list than hours in the day? If you're in college, you know exactly what we're talking about. But there's one thing you should never be too busy to do, and that is taking time to make a budget. A budget is a financial plan that will help you make smart spending choices today while preparing for tomorrow. Budgeting will help you achieve your goals and prepare you for unexpected bumps in the road. So what goes into making a budget? First, you'll need to track your income and expenses for a particular period of time, such as a month. You can use pen and paper, a spreadsheet, or a budgeting app. After that, making your budget comes down to a simple equation: what you earn minus what you spend. To determine your income, include items such as wages earned at work, allowances from family, and student financial aid such as grants or scholarships. To determine your expenses, include items such as tuition, books, rent, credit card payments, and car payments. Then simply subtract your expenses from your income. Are your earnings greater than your spending? If so, you could choose to invest, buy a new cell phone, or simply save for a rainy day. But what if you spent more than you earned? If that's the case, it's time to cut back on your expenses and balance your budget. You may also need to find a way to increase your income. Remember, everyone's budget is unique and it will fluctuate from month to month. So use a budget and be mindful of your daily expenses. That way you can make sure you're spending your money on things that really matter to you. When you budget, you decide where your money goes instead of wondering where it all went. And there you have it, the basics of a budget. Now it's time to create your own. Go to studentaid.gov/budget to get started.
Hopefully, there were a couple things in there that made sense to you. So think about, when you're making a budget, what should be higher, your expenses or your income? So your income is what you're bringing in and your expenses is what's going out. So when we think about that, our income needs to be higher in order to support our expenses and the money that's going out. And if our expenses are too high, we might have to cut back on some things in order to save some money. And so those might be things like, not eating out, make sure we're eating at home, finding things to do that maybe are free, instead of concerts or something. Maybe it's we are hanging out at the park on the weekend, or doing an activity that's not going to cost us as much money, so that we can save money for some of the expenses that we need to cover. Wise spending choices are really important when we're talking about our financial health and creating our budget and our plans. So sometimes, we've all been there, we've all wanted something, but we didn't have enough money to buy it, right? And there's a lot of things you can do. You can save your money, with a goal of, I'm going to buy that new Xbox, or I'm going to buy the new Apple Watch, and I'm going to set aside money, and work to have enough money to buy that item. Or maybe you decide, you know what, I don't really want to spend $400 on the Xbox, and I'm going to decide not to buy it. Or there's things you can do to find, maybe it's a cheaper alternative. Maybe instead of an Apple Watch, you get a Fitbit, or you get something else that maybe isn't that same high price tag. And there are consequences if you start spending more money than you're earning. You might owe money to other people, you might be in debt. And a big one is you might not have enough money in the case of an emergency or an unexpected expense that might come up. So maybe if your car breaks down and that's not an expense that you were budgeting for, you might not have enough money to cover that and to get your car fixed. So a lot of times people, families, cities, states, even countries have so much trouble spending money wisely. And it can be hard to resist spending money on something you want. It can be really hard if you're out and you're shopping and you find something that you really want, you want to buy it. So we have to really remember that sometimes, we need to plan ahead. We need to make a budget. We need to be sure that we have enough income to cover our expenses. And by, to do that, it's things like we saw in the video. Maybe it's tracking your expenses for a month and writing down how much you're spending, so that you always know how much money you have and how much money you're earning. Maybe it's not buying anything without thinking about it first. So maybe there is a big ticket item that you want to buy, but maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to give it the weekend to really think about it, really decide if this is something that I want to spend my money on. And just really thinking about whether or not we need the things that we want to buy. So I want you to imagine that you're signing up for a new fitness program. I recently just did this. I signed up at a yoga studio. And so there are a lot of other expenses that kind of came along with that. So we're going to kind of work through that and think about some of our expenses that might come up. So you think about how you would make sure that you can afford the cost or the program or class before you join. So to know the cost of the program, really do your research. Maybe it's calling, maybe it's checking their website or their Facebook, wherever they might have that information. Is it a monthly cost, weekly? Is it by class? So we need to know the cost of the program, and we need to know how much money that we have that we're able to spend. And we need to know the length of time that we will be in the program. So maybe we have to commit to 12 months of this, or maybe it's 6 or 3. So then we would want to see, okay, if it's $30 a month and I have to commit for 3 months, then I know that I need to have $90 in order to do this. So it's taking that and breaking it down to see all of these different things that are going to determine where our money has to go. And that's why we make a budget, right? So in order to plan, we need to be able to account for our income and our expenses. So income is the money that we earn or receive, including any wages or gifts. So this might not just be a paycheck. This could be money that you get for doing, a chore around the house, or maybe it's a gift from a family member for your birthday or a holiday. So those are all things that we can include as income. Meanwhile, our budget is our spending plan. So it's our spending plan for managing that money, for managing our income during any given period of time. So for me at work, I work on a annual budget. So then I take that overall annual budget and I break it down month by month. So then I have my monthly budget that I'm looking at, making sure, okay, are my expenses, am I spending the right amount here? Am I going to be over budget here? And so maybe at home you do the same thing. Maybe with your personal budget, you look at it 1 month at a time. And our expenses, so that's the money that we're spending. That's the money that's going out. Income is coming in and our expenses are the money that we spend, and that's going out. So that's the money that we spend to buy something or to do something. Maybe it's vacation, anything like that. So, think about some expenses that we're going to have if we join a new fitness program. I know for me, the program that I just joined, I had, instead of monthly fees, it was fees by class. So I had to decide, how many classes that I was going to take and what the total would be for those classes. So there's some other things like gym clothes, right? Maybe we need some new clothes. Or maybe we need equipment. So for me, I needed a yoga mat. So I had to go, I bought a yoga mat for $20. So that was another expense that was outside of just my classes. So some expenses like our membership fees, those are going to repeat every month, right? So we know we're going to have those. Other expenses though, things like buying clothes or buying equipment, like for example, my yoga mat, that would probably only occur once, or maybe it's going to cost a different amount every time. So maybe I bought a couple new clothing items when I first started, but maybe I just need, one other thing down the road. Maybe I need a new pair of shoes in a couple months. I don't necessarily need to buy all new things again. So those are going to cost a different amount every time. And because of these differences, expenses in a budget fall into different categories. So think about what each of these things might mean. So fixed expenses, variable expenses, and periodic expenses. So those are the three categories in our budget. So a fixed expense, that's something that doesn't change from month to month. So for example, your rent or your mortgage payment on your house, those are expenses that we can count on to be the same every month. And then our variable expenses are expenses that vary from month to month. So entertainment, electricity, groceries, these are expenses that we know that we're going to have, but they're not going to be the same amount every single month. And then our periodic expenses are expenses that occur on more of an irregular basis, not monthly. So things like car repairs or doctor's bills. So other examples of that might be something like I just renewed the registration for my car. So that was something that I only have to do annually, or you can even select to do it, for every 2 years. So I paid about $50 to do that, to renew that annually. Or maybe it's a prescription, maybe you get a prescription from the pharmacy and it's not an expense that you have all the time because you're not always sick or you don't always need to take that. Or things like, concert tickets or holiday gift giving. So we always, we spend a little bit more around the holidays, but we don't always spend the same amount every year. So your fixed expenses are your bills that are paid every month. The amount's going to stay the same. Your variable are bills that are paid every month, but the amount changes from month to month. And then your periodic expenses are bills that don't happen regularly, maybe just once or occasionally. So if we are going to create a budget, let's think about something that we would want to create a budget for. So let's say we're going to plan a party with all of our friends in our class, and we're going to have that party once a month, maybe for the whole school year. So it's a recurring event that we're going to hold once a month, but we only need to create the budget for the first party. So when we're creating a budget for a party, there's a lot of things that we need to consider for our expenses. So maybe, food. What kind of food do we want to have at our party? Do we want to have pizza? Do we want to have dessert? Do we want to have things like, maybe we want to have music? So maybe we sign up for a streaming service for music. And let's say, so since our party is going to be once a month and we sign up for this streaming service that has the same cost each month, we know that that's going to be a fixed expense. We know that we're going to spend $9 every month for Spotify, and that's going to stay the same throughout the duration of the time that we're having this party. So throughout the school year. So some other things that might be so that might be like a variable expense. Think about our food and our drinks. So we talked about maybe we're going to have pizza. Well, maybe 1 month for our party, maybe a couple people can't come that time. So we need to get less pizza. So we know we're going to have to buy the pizza. We know we're going to have to buy the food, but we might have to buy less, or other months we might have to buy more. So that's going to be a variable expense that we have for our party. We talked about having something, maybe it's a yearly subscription to something that we have for our party. That's going to be more of a periodic expense. Maybe we're going to rent a space for our party. So we're going to have it at a set location every month. Again, that's going to be a fixed expense because we know it's going to be at the Park Pavilion. We know the Park Pavilion costs $75 to rent. So we know that expense is not going to change. So what if we ran into a situation where, unfortunately, our party budget gets cut, right? So this happens to me sometimes when I'm planning a party, let's say at work. Sometimes things come up and we have to take some money out of our budget and redirect it somewhere else. So there are some things that we might have to do, to some adjustments that we might have to make to our party, especially if, let's say, we had to cut it in half. So we take our overall party budget and we're cutting it in half right off the bat. So there's things that we can do in order to still have the things that we want to have, but spend less money doing so. So things like, maybe we have to find less expensive food options. So maybe we have to find a deal on the pizza or the food that we're getting. Maybe instead of having our streaming service for music, maybe we have games that we play that, maybe someone brings in some cards, or we play Jenga, or we do something else instead of having that entertainment. Maybe we get rid of our decorations, right? Do we really need to have, balloons or streamers or banners? Probably not. We could probably still have a good time without those things. So when we're reducing our budget, we need to look at unnecessary expenses that maybe can be cut. For example, like we said, maybe we get rid of our decorations, or maybe we find trade-offs. Like we said about entertainment, maybe instead of the streaming service for music, maybe we play games with our friends instead. And those things really apply to your personal budget. When you need to reduce what you're spending, we can look for things to cut out. So for me, I really love to eat out. I love takeout. I love going to a restaurant. I love anything that means that I don't have to cook. So maybe if I run into a situation where I need to pull back on my expenses and make sure that I am being responsible in what I'm saving, then I could say, okay, I guess I could cook a couple nights this week, right? Maybe I buy more groceries and we eat at home instead of eating out. Or maybe it's you know, instead of going to a concert in the summer, maybe, you know what, I just can't spend, you know, $100 on tickets for that right now. So instead, I'm going to go, you know, with my friends and hang out somewhere that's not going to cost me as much money. So sometimes we have to find those trade-offs, or we have to cut those expenses, the unnecessary expenses, and we have to really determine what we need and what we want. Okay, so we still have a little bit of time. So we're going to go through some expenses here and see where they might fall into our budget. So if I have a pay stub that, so if I have a pay stub for $300, so that's my paycheck. So that's going to fall into, you know, take a second, where do you think that's going to fall into? It's going to fall into our income, right? Because that's my money coming in, that's my paycheck. So then let's say I have my monthly mobile phone bill. So where do we think that that's going to fall? So that's going to be a fixed expense, because we know that every month my phone bill is going to cost $35. Babysitting earnings. So this is what I'm bringing in from, maybe I babysit on Friday night. So if I'm bringing this money in, if I'm receiving this money, this is going to be income. Weekly bus pass, that's also going to be something that we know we're going to pay for every single week. So that's going to fall into our fixed expense. Yearly car insurance. So $600 for a year for our car insurance. So this isn't something that we're paying every single month. This is something we're paying once a year, so periodically, and it's going to be the same amount. It's going to be a periodic expense. Yearly medical checkup. Same thing. This is something that we know we're going to have, but we're probably only going to have it once a year. So gasoline for our car, right? So 20 to 60 per month. Maybe that depends on where I'm going that month. So we know it's an expense that we're going to have. We just don't know what it's going to cost every single month. Groceries. So maybe for me, that means that I buy more groceries so that I cook at home that week. So I'm going to have my grocery expense every single week, but what I buy is going to affect how much I'm spending. So again, it's an expense that we know we're going to have, but it can change. Oil change. So again, I know this is going to cost about $35, $40 every time I go, but I might only need to go, you know, twice or 3 times a year. Monthly car payment. This is something I have every single month, and I know it's going to be the same. Birthday check from my grandma for $40. So this is a gift. This is income. What I'm spending on entertainment. So I know I'm going to spend some money on entertainment, but maybe that changes every month. And that is it. So it looks like we have about 5 minutes. So I don't know if there were any questions. Nicole, if we want to take a second and answer any of those.
Thanks, Juliana. Great job. This is such an important topic, no matter what age you are. I want to remind all of our attendees that if they have a question, they can type it in the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And we do have some questions, so I'm just going to pull them up here. First question, is there an app that can help me keep track of my spending?
That's a great question. I would imagine there are a lot. I know I personally have used the app. It's called Mint. I have used that before, and it might even depend on your bank. So I know for my bank, there's actually an app it's built into the app that it says, okay, you spent this much on your expenses last month, you brought this much money in. And it kind of gives me a nice breakdown of where my money is going. Not that I always want to see it, because sometimes it goes to like shopping and entertainment a little bit too much, but that's when then I can say, okay, maybe I don't need to spend that much money on that next month. So it breaks it down really nice for you. So I bet if you go, if you even just Google it, there's probably quite a few out there that you could download and really plug all that, your money into it and see where everything's going.
Right, thank you. And I know sometimes that visual is really nice and helpful when you actually see it. Speaking of the bank, what is your job at the bank? And what
Yes.
does your, daily responsibilities look like?
Yes, so I'm the marketing director. So I get to do a lot of really great stuff. Honestly, that's the best way I can explain it. I get to do a little bit of everything. So I get to do things like this, working in the community. I also, as part of my job, is I manage things like our social media. I manage our website. I would do some event planning when we have some different events that we need to have. I do a lot of, design for things like our advertisements. So I really get to do a little bit of everything. And I get to work with a lot of different people. I pretty much work with every single department within the bank. So that's a really great perk of the job, but I'm not handling anybody's money or doing anything like that.
Next question. Can I ask the bank to put a limit on how much I can withdraw from my account? That's a good
Yes,
one.
that's a really good question. And yes, the answer is yes, you can. Those are things that you can set up. Another great thing that you can do, with our bank and probably with others, is you can set up text alerts. So let's say you're getting a little bit close, like for me on my shopping and entertainment, let's say I'm getting a little close there on what I'm spending. And I want to set myself a limit for the weekend or for a week. I can set a limit and then get an email or a text alert that says, you're getting a little close to that limit. You maybe have only $50 left. So yes, there are a lot of different things that you can do to set up with your bank so that you always know where your money is and where it's going.
I have a hard time saving and spend all my money. What advice do you have to stop my spending habits now while I am young?
That's a great question. And it's great that you realize that as well, and that you want to do something to really help you improve that. I think the best thing that I can tell anybody is pay yourself first. So when you get, maybe it's the birthday check, or maybe it's a paycheck, maybe you're working and you're getting a paycheck, put money aside in your savings account first. That's the very first thing that you want to do, is save money. So then let's say you put, let's say you get a check for $300, put $50 or put $100 of that away. And then you have your $200 or your $150 that you can spend on the things that you want to spend it on. But you'll be grateful that you've paid yourself, you've put the money away, you can feel a little bit better about it then. And you've got money going both places. You have money setting yourself up for if you have an unexpected emergency, or maybe if you're just saving money for a goal. But then you can also have your fun money and your money to buy, to buy things with, or to do activities with.
Great advice. And I liked in the presentation when you mentioned that, there are activities that you can do that don't cost anything. So if that's something that you're really trying to be conscious of, you might want to explore some of those fun things that you can do where you don't exactly, have to pay for anything. So.
Exactly.
Here's a good question. Are you hiring? So you said you work at Cortland Bank. So are you hiring?
Yeah, so we always have different positions open within the bank. We do have quite a few open right now as well. We have 13 branch offices, and then plus we have our headquarters and our operations center. So we have a lot of different positions that are both on the front end, so in our branches working with customers, and operational positions on the back end. So those functions that you don't necessarily see but are happening. So yes, at cortlandbank.com/careers.
Now, can a high school student get a job at the bank?
So you would need to be at least 18 years old. But after that, yes.
And what position might they start with?
Yeah, so a great position, a great entry level position in a bank would be if you wanted to be on more of the customer facing side, working in one of our branches as a teller or a banker. That's a really great way to get in and really see how the bank runs. And on the back end, we have some customer service reps. So customer service representatives maybe in our loan servicing area, so working with people's loan payments and documents, and same thing in our deposit operations. So that's more like answering phone calls, and helping people, whether it's with online banking or we talked about putting those limits on your card. So those are some really great entry level positions that give you a nice knowledge base of the bank and how things work within the bank.
Wonderful. What would you say are some of the skills that are required for positions at the bank?
Yeah, so definitely, being able to do things like manage your time well, being able to speak with customers, and speak with people and answer questions, being able to communicate well. Those are really important because obviously as the bank, we are handling people's money and we know how important our money is to us. So of course we have, we get a lot of people that come in with questions or they're looking, maybe for a little bit of advice. So being able to communicate well, being able to manage your time and being kind of responsible for your time. Those are some big things that are very important.
Great, thank you. That looks like that's the last of our questions. So Julianna, thank you again for a wonderful presentation. We appreciate your time today. And if anyone has any questions, I'm sure that we can get you into contact with Julianna. And I'm sure there's a ton of great information on your website as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.